Do you want to talk about OpenStax now?
Let's do it.
Less fun, maybe, but also good. Okay, so we thought we would talk about sort of kind of show you around OpenStax. So if you already know this stuff, you can pretend you don't. But we'll go over the student kind of resources and tools that are available, and then also what it's like for the instructors and the course packs and the PowerPoints and all of that stuff that are available. So I'm gonna show the college success one, but Jordan will also talk about American history so that it's not all college experience related, and we won't talk specifically about
Right.
NICC
Politically, please. I don't want
Oh
to.
my gosh.
Yeah. So we'll keep it nice and generic.
Cut this out of the
And
thing,
then we'll
Caleb.
send it to faculty that we think might be interested in seeing it. And by the way, I do know that Josh is planning to use the OER for his online course.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we at least can move some online people, maybe.
From what I heard, Josh actually and Rachel immediately switched. They were like, I've been
Awesome.
trying for this. I wanted this. And then that sort of caused like the whole yeah. So bless their beautiful hearts for making a switch. But yeah, at least they get to do online.
Yeah. All right. So so I guess how much experience do you have with OpenStax currently?
So not a whole lot. I really only started using OpenStax, I would say, for my exploring careers and job shadowing class because I couldn't find a textbook quick enough because of class that is for exploring careers and I couldn't find it quick enough to get out to students in time. So I went with an OER. Um, and I don't know that I have a great OER for that class, if I'm being perfectly honest, but it serves its purpose. It helps walk students through. At the end, it starts getting them into resume building, networking, cover letters, things like that. So it has worked well, but I really don't have a lot of experience with OpenStax. The only other thing was this summer we were building a CBE course for Psych of Human Relations, and it was brought up like, hey, there's from you actually that there's an online free open educational resource for this book. Would you like to review it? And so up until that point, hadn't even crossed my mind that could exist.
Okay, so there are many OER platforms and resources out there, and we're going to talk specifically about OpenStax today because we think that there are a lot of really good options here, and there are a lot of instructor and student resources and tools that go along with their books. And so we thought we would start with this one. Also, they're peer reviewed, 100% free. All of their sort of add-on tools and things like that are free as well. They're starting to play around with some interactive lesson building. That's not available in all books yet, but it's starting to come out in some of the science books, and there are more in the queue. And so I think that OpenStax is just going to become more and more popular and sort of the standard. I think it already is sort of the standard in OER.
Okay.
So just a quick rundown of what they have available. You can see the little icons here. They've got a lot of humanities related books, science books, math, but they are growing. I think every year I see another handful of books come out here. So I'm going to show off the college success book because that's the one that I use. And so I am most familiar with it. There are 3 versions of it available, and I don't think this is the case for most of the subjects, but for this one, it is. There's the full college success book, which is designed for first-year college students. That's the one I use. There's a concise version of that book, which is a little bit shorter. And then there's one that's geared for high school students. You can see here, there are instructor resources and student resources available. In order to get the instructor resources, you just have to make a free account, which just takes a minute. It's pretty easy to do. I don't remember if there's instructor verification. I think there might be a short instructor verification process where they just verify that you are in fact a faculty member somewhere before they give you access to the instructor tools. But other than that, it's simple. When you click into the book itself, you can view the entire thing online. So when students come in here, they can click interact with whatever sections they want to see, and then they are able to highlight. All they have to do is highlight text, and they can choose a color, and they can add notes to it.
Oh.
And then if they want to see those notes, they just click their highlights over here, and anything they've highlighted will come up.
And it saves that for them for
It
later
does.
if they go back.
Yep. So this is, I mean, this is all of the times I've ever done this as a demonstration. And so they never go away, I think, unless you delete them.
Okay.
And the student, it's not our single sign-on system, so they'll have to kind of create an account and do that. But there's no verification like the instructor accounts, which is neat. And another thing that since you were there, Shannon, like instructors can link this into our LMS by chapter or section. Like you can get specific, so you can kind of be selective about how you pull it into Brightspace. You can say, read chapter 1 and provide the link to chapter 1, or just actually we're reading this section from chapter 1 on this Thursday and link specifically to that page.
What
Yes.
do you mean, like link specifically? So if I wasn't having them read all of chapter 1, just like parts of it, I could.
Yeah, so you might not have to describe like what part of the chapter, like you might not have to type read section 1, 3, 4, 6, 2. You could just provide that direct link, which Shannon I think is going to show us here.
Okay.
Yeah, you can link. So if you wanted to link specifically to chapter 5.1, you can just grab that link and put it right in your course. It'll take them right to that section. And then you can also, in our LMS, you can include it not as an external link. So it opens up directly in Brightspace, and all of those student tools are still available. Now this says I have no highlights. That's because I'm not logged into the book through Brightspace.
Oh, okay.
But students can come in here, they can make accounts, and they should be able to. Oh, that's because I'm using a different book, actually. This is the concise version. And that's why I don't have any highlights. But they can interact with all of that stuff right here without even leaving Brightspace, which is nice.
Super cool.
Oh, because then we can tell if they read it then too.
Well,
Well,
you will,
not if they read it, but that they at least went into it.
If
Right,
they click
you-
the link, content item link, you're saying?
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
you'll be able to tell if they opened that link and how much time they spent
Oh,
with it open
okay.
in the course progress tool. And you could always ask them to show a screenshot of their highlights and notes if you wanted to make sure that they were actually engaging with it in that way.
Okay.
Cool idea. And now they could go external, right? They could just go to the Openstax website, go to your book and say, well, I read the book. I didn't do it through the LMS, which you'd kind of have to handle. But I think students would prefer to probably click on only the sections they need to read, right?
Yeah.
In here. But
Yeah, it can be overwhelming to look at the whole thing. And if they had a physical textbook in front of them, they're probably never going to sit there and leaf through the whole thing, right? So being able
Go
to
to
just give
exactly
them
what they're
short
saying.
snippets, I think is really nice.
you want to
Some
talk
of
about I'm sorry, Shannon, go ahead.
I was just going to say some of the newer OpenStax books, and I'm trying to remember if this is one of them, also offer an estimated reading time at the top of each section, which is nice. Yeah, this one has it. So estimated completion 22 minutes. Yeah. So I think that I don't think the full version of College Success has that, but the concise one does. So I think that's something they've added more recently. What were you going to say?
Oh, you'd mentioned a physical book, and I wondered if you wanted to kind of talk about those options regarding like textbook adoption.
So every book has an order a print copy option, and when you click on that, it'll take you to Amazon. They have a deal with Amazon, so these books are available usually $30 or less. You can order a print copy of the book, so it's really easy to do that. I know some students prefer the printed books; they like to be able to write in them or whatever. So they can do that at a pretty low cost if they want to.
Can we still do this through our bookstore that we're using where they print it off too?
So that's a good question. We need to look more into whether Academos can offer that, but I think so, because when you click on this link, you can see there's a bookstore option here. So bookstores can go through OpenStax and figure out how to order copies to be able to distribute. So yeah, it is possible.
I think previously for my Exploring Careers course, I had to create a packet.
The course pack.
Course pack, right.
Yeah.
That would be another potential venue, and Vital Source, I think, would be the company that is negotiating with OpenStax about the licensing or how much it costs or whatever, if anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something for us to look more into with our bookstore. The other option is that you can get a PDF copy of the entire book. So if a student wanted to be able to just download this to their computer and print off certain pages or certain sections as they went, they could do that too. So there
limited
are
access to limited internet access, right? Put it on a device, a screen, something like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. Can I show something else off and with how I use it?
Yeah. You want me to stop sharing?
Yeah, I'll share my screen. Screen two. So I switched to OER when I got to NICC. I'm never going back. Just the benefit of knowing that students have the book and I don't have to worry about them not getting the book, just amazing. So we can really hit the ground running. So I like, and this is new, and I shared this, and I'm sure Shannon will talk a little bit about, we'll get to instructor resources and that too. I currently don't use any, but I kind of like that lecture slides are here. So if you're someone who wants that, that's here for a lot of these books. This book, I'm on the 3rd edition for American Government, which I use for Openstax. And it lets you keep using the 2nd edition if you want, or you can make the leap to the 3rd edition. So I think I waited a semester to jump to the 3rd edition. I wanted to highlight the audiobook, which is really cool. And this is pretty new.
Oh.
So both instructors and students, they're just making this available for more and more of their text. So I love Washington here with the headphones. So YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and so YouTube playlist right here. Students can just listen to the book. They don't have to mess with any, accessibility service platform. I mean, and those options would still exist, and the book would still be readable, like through, our Read Speaker web reader and things like that. But pull this right up on your phone. YouTube playlist, super simple.
Looked like it even had Spotify as an option too.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. Yeah, I'm an auditory learner. I actually prefer. Like the Dresden Files, I'm on a reread. I'm doing Audible.
Mm.
Yeah. I definitely appreciate that audio option.
Yeah, so that particular option isn't available for every book. I just checked College Experience and I don't see it there, but like Jordan said, it'll work with Read Speaker, especially if you put in direct links to the readings rather than trying to put in PDFs. Then we can use the Chrome extension for Read Speaker, and that works pretty seamlessly. So let's talk about other instructor resources. Back to sharing. So you can get a course pack for whatever LMS is being used, which is pretty simple to add to a sandbox, and I'll show that off in a second. There are resource hubs where instructors from other schools can post lesson plan ideas or activities, or maybe customized PowerPoints or whatever. So you can always visit that hub and see what's out.
Is that under each book, like specifically?
Yeah, this is under the instructor resources tab. So you'll have to be logged in, make sure you have an instructor account, and then you'll be able to see all of this. And when you download the course pack, you'll get a lot of this directly into your sandbox anyway, but they've got the instructor manual and a getting started guide, PowerPoint slides for each chapter, test banks, which I'll show off in a minute, which are really nice. Lesson plan ideas, DEI guidelines. There's all kinds of great resources here that you can use as an instructor. So I need
to dig a little bit further for my other course, my Exploring Careers, because I don't think that whatever I selected has all those resources, or maybe it does, and I just didn't know.
Yeah, if it's an older OpenStax book, it may have less. I noticed the DEI guideline is a fairly new thing, although that's not specific to each course, so you could grab that from another book. But yeah, I think their resources are evolving as they get bigger, and I'm sure they're getting more and more feedback. So in this sandbox, I imported the College Success, the concise version, and I just wanted to show you what it looks like. It will put in a module for each chapter where it puts in PowerPoint and a link to that chapter for reading.
Can I pause for a second and just ask? So like, I'm computer savvy, but I'm not like really, really computer savvy. Like, what if I was struggling with this area? Can somebody help me with embedding this into my course?
Yep, absolutely. That's what we do. So you could just contact one of us and we can build the sandbox. In fact, it makes a lot of sense for us to just make a sandbox with that course, because there are probably other instructors who will want to use it. If not now, then down the road. And so we can make a sandbox, add you to it as an instructor, and then you and other instructors can add more resources to it if you want to. Just to give you an idea for this one, I started kind of building in what from our course guide is relevant to the specific chapter, and then some activities that I already had built using H5P. I started adding in here so that eventually other instructors could come in and just kind of grab whatever they want. So it's sort of like our Google Drive that we use now, where some instructors share resources for a course. We're just moving it over here so you can easily copy whatever you want to into your course shells.
Very cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah, so you'll also get a module for instructor resources where all of the stuff I was showing you before, the instructor manual and all of that will show. And then you get Word files for each chapter. Because it's OpenStax and it's an open license, you can do whatever you want with the text. And so if you wanted to take some of it out of the book and put it into an activity or a worksheet or whatever, you have the Word file so you can grab it and use it however you want to.
This is great for people who are nervous about switching because they've already created all this content.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't want to spend, my 2-week break creating a brand new course. This is awesome.
Right. Right. And they do these test banks, which again, these are pretty cool. They have included Bloom's levels for these. So it should be really easy to align.
Yeah.
Blueprint your course or align it to your course guide. It should be really easy to figure out which questions
So
align.
if I had something like, for instance, we have a lot for college experience that are discussing. So I could find that on the Blooms and wow.
Yeah. And there are a bunch of short answer questions on here too, which you could turn into discussion prompts if you wanted to, or assignment prompts or anything. They don't have to be in a quiz necessarily, but it really gives a really nice starting point if you're, moving over to this or teaching the class for the first time or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What other questions do you have?
I mean, you guys have been doing a really good job of showing each step. So it looks to me, how do I get like the buy-in for students to, that aren't necessarily online learners? So I get a lot of students who are maybe in other programs like the shop programs, HVAC, or auto mechanic, diesel, and they're not big online users. So they struggle when I give them online assignments, things like that. So how do I get them to understand how to utilize this? Is there like an easy student tutorial or?
That's a good question. And this kind of came up in our OER task force recently, where we talked about also the fact that reading digitally is different than reading in print. And so how do you kind of prepare students for that? So we talked about a couple of different strategies. One was to kind of teach them. I know we already cover active reading strategies and things like that in college experience, but maybe to have that in other courses where OER are being used at the beginning. Here are some strategies for how to read a digital text. Or here are some things you might run into. You might need more time, or you might need less time, or if you really want to print it, here are your options. And so I think if you kind of lay it all out there at the beginning and help students realize that they may need to interact with it differently, that's helpful, because they may approach it the same way they would approach a printed textbook, which may also not be a great strategy. They may not be reading their printed textbooks very well. And so when it translates to the online textbook, it could be even worse. So I think the sooner we can kind of teach those strategies and them in a broad array of classes, not just classes like not just experience, but any class that's using these kinds of books, I think we should talk about how they need to interact with them.
Yeah.
One thing I did is I used a light board, and I did this when I switched to a different OER a while back. I just stood beside the text, which I pulled on screen, and kind of like interacted with it and like pointed to it as I kind of navigated. So I navigated with a mouse in the video, but just had the book open beside me and kind of pointed around at like how to move around and how it works and stuff like that. So just a short, like 2 or 3 minute video. And that was for an online class where I didn't have the benefit of seeing them in person. If you're in person, I think you probably have a little bit more ability to kind of do that coaching through that transition. So it's something you kind of send out like first and foremost before you begin the class potentially, and then kind of help, as needed. Yeah. One other thing real quick. I looked at the textbook adoption. So I make it available as a purchase. My version, I assume probably most or all OpenStax books are available there. So I have the OpenStax American Government 3rd edition as an optional spiral bound purchase in the bookstore for $24 or something like that. So if students need to use that financial aid money, theoretically, we should be able to definitely make that available, physical book.
I did that same thing for my exploring careers. And 99% of the time they print it because they think that they have to. So do you put like a note in there that says this is optional, available online, or what do you do to
Oh,
so students don't know that necessarily that they have the option, even though it says optional? All of my students got it printed out, for instance, this semester, and they
so
did.
they purchased it because they thought they needed to.
Yeah.
That's interesting. The course notes, like there is a course notes field, and I really emphasize that no purchase is required. That's what I use that language for. I sort of wish that field were required because it's you can communicate with learners like before the class begins in that way because everyone looks there, to see what book they need. So no purchase required. I use a lot of strong language there to say you don't have to buy this.
Okay.
Probably
I
the
don't
best thing we
use
can kind of
strong
do.
language. I think I put like optional can get
I'm like
printed if needed
all
or something.
caps,
So
all
yeah,
caps.
good
Yeah,
to
the little
know.
optional button currently in our, online bookstore is a little bit challenging to see.
Another thing you could do is, course shells are available way early, right? They're available now for spring courses. So you could conceivably put in intelligent agent in your
Yes.
now that
At the point of enrollment.
enrolled into the course, they get an email saying, just want to let you know there's an
Yeah.
optional, this is the textbook, it's free. There is an optional print version. You do not have to purchase it, but it's available through the bookstore.
Again, we could just contact you guys and say, hey,
Yep.
oh, yeah, because I'm
Yes,
like,
we
I
can
don't
add
know how
it.
to do that.
Yep.
That's really powerful because it happens well before they have. I mean, they have access to their online systems because they're an applicant and obviously they've registered and all that kind of thing. But this could be months before the class. They're getting automated communication from you. That's really, really helpful, even before they have access, well before they have access to Brightspace.
That's awesome.
And that's where the video could be potentially too, right? That I described kind of recording.
Yeah.
Here's the book. Here's what it looks like. Yeah. There you go.
Yep. And one more thing I wanted to share is that there is a student guide that Openstax offers, a reading and note-taking guide. It's available in the student resources area.
Okay.
When you download it, this is what it looks like. So they've got some strategies for reading and note-taking. So this is probably especially useful for people who are not teaching college experience where we cover this stuff anyway. But even so, I usually put this in my course at the beginning because we don't get to reading and note-taking until, a few chapters in.
Very late in, yeah.
Yeah. And so I put this at the beginning and suggest that they read through it so that they can at least get a head start.
Awesome idea. And they can get the book right away, right? Just they have have access and class begins. They're looking at your book, getting ready for class.
Yeah,
in an ideal world.
Great. It's great for, for all students, especially great for accessibility.
And
students
late enrollment, I guess.
Yeah, that too, of course.
Students who are just signing up for classes right as we're about to start. So like the semester's starting and they signed up the day of or the day before. And so I kind of have to wait a while for them to be able to get the book because I can't really start assigning things from the book. And then that sort of sets like this precedent too, that later on in the semester when I'm telling them, go to this in the book, I feel like they got very used to me not doing that. And
Right.
so then it becomes like a little bit of a struggle to get them to do that for some reason. I'm not sure why, but they got used to it. Yeah. So it sort of sets a precedent in the beginning of the semester that we're ready to go immediately. So
yeah, the other nice thing about OER in general is that you don't have to worry about everyone getting the right edition. As long as you're putting links to digital readings and not PDFs into your course, if the book gets updated online, the students will have the updated version automatically. So there's no worry about that.
So don't put in PDFs, put in the links
to
the chapters.
Right. Yeah. PDFs you will have to update. They may not be accessible. You're going to run into issues there, but linking directly to to the chapters or sections is definitely the way to go.
Sounds like this is really good for people who are not teaching college experience because it's helping with all that housekeeping stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah, wouldn't be a bad idea for some instructors to link even to that concise version of it in other courses as a reminder. Don't forget what you learned in college experience. It's still important. You might want to take a look at those note-taking chapter, sections or something like that before you start working through this class.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else you were hoping to learn today?
You guys really sold me. So now I need to go back though and kind of look through because the text that, like I said, the OER that I'm using for my exploring careers, I think I did that more as like a panic afterthought, and I didn't give it a whole lot of time and I didn't really look through all of those resources. I don't even think I knew that those resources could exist
Yeah.
in OER format. I kind of thought that that was only like if you went through a publisher, that did you actually get, the PowerPoint slides? And because I use that for visual learners, so that they have that visual aid. I find those PowerPoints to be really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And if
And I
instructors,
don't want to recreate too. Once I've created a PowerPoint and I've got this really solid PowerPoint, I hate changing books because I get so invested into, I know this, I've so it'd be really nice to have something that is comparable to what I created, so that it's still a really good resource to use.
yeah, and it's a lot faster if you want to create online lecture videos because you've got the PowerPoint there. You can tweak it, you can customize it, take out slides if you want to.
Does
But
it let
really
me
get
edit?
started. Yeah, you get the PowerPoint file, so you can do what you want with it.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for talking with us about OpenStax and OER in general. And if we can help you make any of the transition or spruce up your other course where you're already using it, just let us know.
Yes, definitely.
Game over.